Good afternoon, and thank you for joining Mecca Live here on Tuesday, August 3rd, 2020. This week's theme is public news and private news. Today's topic is don't tell your mother. So I want to tell you a couple things. We have decided to utilize the YouTube platform, and that way it appears as though we will be able to record the lives and take Facebook out of it, out of the title, and then record them and then post them on Facebook or Instagram or whatever the case may be. And I think that may resolve the issue we've been having with loading them in time for 10 a.m. So what we were doing is making sure that we're able to create them and make them postable, shareable. So this is the option we're trying. So hopefully this will work. Again, this week's theme is public news and private news. The topic for today is don't tell your mother. As always, we like to begin the week, although today's Tuesday. This was supposed to have taken place yesterday, so we're going to try to catch up on our topics. And I am sitting on my lanai. I'm not scared. So if you see sweat pouring, I'm trying to navigate that. But that's one of the reasons why. Another reason why we did them early in the morning was to negate that piece. But anyway, as always, as we begin a week, and this is, although it's Tuesday, we're beginning this week together today. We want to do so with gratitude that we've arrived, right? That we have the ability to start another week, hopefully in our right mind, but definitely living and breathing. And I would like to thank you specifically for your patience as we navigate these timing issues and scheduling with posting them and creating these Mecca Live sessions. Mecca, making engaging community connections accessible. And we appreciate the most precious commodity that we have, and that is our time. So I appreciate that you have decided to share it with me here via Mecca Live, utilizing the YouTube platform. So the topic, don't tell your mother. Basically what I plan to address in this live is childhood trauma, abuse, manipulation, grooming, and other forms of violation as it relates to people or situations where the children or students, whatever the case may be, have been victims of some sort of trauma by means of deception. They've been primed or controlled, with whether it be our students or our children or youth that we are aware of and interact with. So one resource I want to note is a book called Emotional Blackmail. It is by Susan Forward. As a therapist back in the day, and because I'm not licensed, I am considered a counselor, but did the same things. I utilized her, that particular book, although she has many. I use that one a lot. I actually was able to get many of them and provide them to several clients and consumers that utilized our services. And so it's a very good book, but I wanted to present that. I know that we've shared that via Mecca before, but I wanted to present it again. It's called Emotional Blackmail by Susan Forward. So let's get right into the topic. Don't tell your mother. So you've heard that before. Don't tell your mother. And you know that I'm big on context. So if you're planning a party or if you're doing something different like that, of course, don't tell your mother because But that has been used. That phrase and that mindset has been used so often to keep people quiet. So often to keep children quiet. And a lot of times it's coupled with other things that will hold a kid or a child like emotionally hostage. Like, I'm going to kill your parents if I'm going to do this, right? So there's that intimidation piece. Excuse me, I'm going to turn the fan just a little bit because it is hot and chaw. There we go. So maybe that helps. And so with that being said, we've seen the videos. We've seen shows and stories and read books where these are the kinds of things that are said as a prelude, or these are the kinds of things that are said to keep someone silent, right? So we're going to get into that, but I want to explain the title first because it's interesting how it came to pass, but it's a good story. So the title being public news and private news. When I was getting my bachelor's degree in social work, I worked at it was a latchkey program in Benton Harbor, Michigan. And the leader of that program was a lady named Miss Brown. And that's where I first heard the phrase public news and private news. And why would she say that? So for our latchkey program, obviously it's the kids that there's a piece of time in between school being let out and parents arriving at home. So this latchkey program was designed or started, and so the kids would walk right from, I forget the name of the school though. They would walk right from school to this building, which was kind of in between. It was in the community, but it was in between the school and several streets leading deeper into the community. And so they would go there, and then it would be dismissed, because then some of them would walk home, some of their parents would come and pick them up. But it was an opportunity for them to have a place to get a snack, get some help with their homework, and then play games. And they were broken up into different age groups. And I think we had 7th graders, we had some middle schoolers. I think we may have had a couple of 8th graders, but the most of them were like, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade, and then right between 5th, the numbers started getting smaller, and I was one of the leaders for 4th grade. But anyway, the kids would get there, and Miss Brown would provide a snack, and then we would meet on the rug. And it was this big round rug, and she would go over different things like, how was your day, blah, 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 today is whatever the day was. And then she'd give like a couple of equations, to see who was up to speed on their times tables or whatever, and then a story, and then we would break into our respective grade groups. But I remember there would be times when students would start sharing stuff or say something, and a lot of it was maturity. Some of it was like, I want the spotlight now. It's the me show, right? But I remember students telling business, and she'd be like, well, there's public news and there's private news. Private news would be, something you would maybe only tell one other person, or maybe not anybody. And public news is something that you wouldn't mind if someone said about you, or you wouldn't mind if someone found out or whatever. So that would be private news. And she said it so often to the point where all she would have to say was public or private. That would be private. And generally, if they really thought about it, when it was public news, she didn't say anything. So I was just like, okay. So there's that. And I said, you know what? I want to name it that because of what we're going to discuss. So the reason why we are having this conversation and why it's so important is because a lot of times we assume that our children and our students know more than they know, right? They already know that. The other thing is, explaining a thing or a topic or a situation or a narrative is one thing, but kind of like, this is like verbal flashcards for what to avoid, right? So if I tell you not to do a certain thing and don't get sucked into that, but I don't tell you how you could possibly get sucked into it, I'm only giving you half training, right? So these are some of the things that if my kids hear someone say this inside the context that we're speaking, then they'll know something about that ain't right because mama told me, right? That part. And our kids, our children really deserve and need to have these conversations. They deserve to have these conversations, especially by us as parents and teachers and caregivers, but they also need it. So let's go right into it. When I was younger, my mother shared many things with me, and some of them I didn't understand completely. And some, you know how it is, sometimes the older people in our lives, our parents or our older family members, or just people of influence that are significantly older than us, will say something and it'll stick. And at the moment when they share it, we may not necessarily completely understand it, but it stays, right? One of the many things my mother told me when I was young was, don't trust a man who says trust me. Now, pause. When I say man, the context was that I would get married to a man, because that's how I identify. So I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But she would say, don't trust a man who says trust me. And I was like, she said he shouldn't have to tell you to trust him. So don't trust him. If he tells you to trust, you're gonna trust me? That's your first sign. Now, she didn't say pack my bags and hit the hills, but she was like, that would be your first time. That would be when you back up and like, let me see what else is happening, right? But don't tell your mother. When we're talking about different things and different phrases that people may use or say, utilizing this as a vehicle of intimidation or control, it's usually quickly followed by a threat of some kind. So quickly relative to whatever the situation may be, but that whole situation of, if you tell, then this, right? So there's the threat, there's the intimidation aspect where one would be less inclined to tell, or one would tell knowing the consequences, the perceived consequences, and then kind of teeter perhaps, or explain why they were afraid to tell or why it took them so long to tell, because maybe they get to the point where, okay, I'm gonna take my chances, right? If you love me, then we understand that to be utilized often as a form of manipulation. And again, inside the context that's not a healthy relationship, inside the context that's not a mutual kind of exchange, that's what we're talking about at this moment. So that if you love me, like if you're sitting on the couch with somebody and you want them, they appear to be closer to something than you are. Can you get it? Oh, if you love me. Okay, I'm not talking about the jokes and the jest. I'm talking about, serious manipulation. You're so this or that or the other thing. A lot of times inside the context, you want to see, I'm so what? And they'll say a thing, an adjective or something. So what about that is missing? If I'm so, am I being compared to somebody else? Like, what is the piece? Like, why are we, because oftentimes that's a phrase used when someone is grooming or priming a child or a young person toward a certain thing. So whether it's to stay inside that relationship, if they're grooming them for other types and forms of exploitation, a lot of times that may be one of the phrases that are used. You're different then. So now, still inside that grooming, priming kind of thing, but now we're utilizing the ego. We want them to feel chosen, like you're special, and I get to do this, and you get to do this because you've arrived. This is what happens when you're special. Because we want to be special, or because we want to be whatever that thing is. Okay, I don't really get that, but if that's what I get, or that's what's required for me to stay special. So we're chasing this thing when the goal is to keep you chasing that way so I can do this, right? You understand me. So this is kind of precarious because it's an artificial responsibility. So it takes away accountability, which dulls the red flag detectors, right? You understand me. Oh, so listen. They are just, blah, blah, blah. That's just how they are. They're going through a hard time right now. Well, you don't understand him, or you don't understand her, or you don't understand them, because and that's why. Is that what they told you? No, I know it because, and then we fall back on this place where we've been in this position of safety and in this chosen area, right? And then the cycle continues. When I say the next one, understand that it is inside the context of when I've had conversation with people that are in longer relationships, like longer lasting relationships, like maybe they've been boyfriend and girlfriend, or girlfriend and girlfriend and boyfriend for like more than a year. And that doesn't have to be. I'm just saying these comments have come from things that I've read, but this next one specifically from people that I've talked to in person. And so married couples that have been together longer than a year, and not that there's any time frame, because sometimes this stuff can escalate quickly and it doesn't even have to be 6 months. But do we have to go to your parents' house every weekend? Now, let's put that in context. Is that a situation where we're trying to isolate? Or are the parents annoying, right? Is it every single weekend? Or do we have any, during the week, do we have time where we're just with our... So I put it like this. If you've ever watched the show Everyone Loves Raymond, this person would be Marie. This family would be Marie. If you know anything about the show, the family's always at the house, just walking in. So do they always have to be here? That kind of thing. Or is it a situation where this is a tight-knit family? Do we have dinner every weekend? Did you enter into this relationship knowing that every Sunday, this is what we do? So is that a norm and a more or a tradition that's unique to your family? And now we're trying to get the difference. I was thinking sometimes I've allowed my son to watch that show several times because I was able to say, hey, one, if I ever start acting like Marie, I'm gonna need you to tap me on my shoulder and be like, remember when you told me? Because sometimes we start doing things that sound some way to the person we're speaking to, but not what we intended, right? So allowing your children, and depending on the child and depending on the age, he's gonna be 19 soon, allowing them to have a voice, frame it the way, because if you give them a voice and you haven't framed it, you really can't get mad at them when they use the voice that you gave them. However, having that exchange, because we are not above mistake. So keeping that in mind, but making sure that you frame it in a way that's respectful, but also practical. Because if you tell them to tap you on the shoulder and then they tap you on the shoulder and they get in trouble for putting their hands on you, then that's it's a setup, right? And serves no purpose. But when we're sharing these phrases, among the common, like a lot of common ones that are used within the context of unhealthy, toxic, and or dangerous relationships or encounters, the use of secrets needs to be directly addressed and repeatedly. Don't tell so-and-so. If you don't tell your mother, like those kinds of things. Like, why do we have to have secrets? And understand the role of secrets and the damage that secrets can play, especially in relationships with people that may not understand the need for secrets, i.e. younger children, and the role of the person who is being kept out of that information. So why would I not tell my mother this? My mother is my parent, right? Don't tell your parents. Why would, of all people, not tell them why? So help them understand the role of secrets and the damage that they can play as you have these conversations. The other reason why we want to have these kinds of conversations is because we need to share and illuminate the patterns, the strategies, and the pathology commonly used among those who are manipulative, controlling, obsessive, and or governed by jealousy, power, and control. So an example I've used in the past, I dated this one person who it wasn't anybody I probably would have dated under normal circumstances, but I had gone through something major, and all of the places where I was just feeling kind of low, they kind of highlighted, and not in an obvious way, like, you do a really good job at da-da-da, and I hadn't heard any compliments, it wasn't like I was, as the kids say out here today, thirsty. It wasn't that. It was someone I had known, but not known, we were in the same circles. And so it wasn't like a stranger walking up to me, because they never been like, you don't know me, but they did know me, right? I was involved in several activities in the community, and so they were too, or we had partner events or whatever, and it just evolved to a place where many people were like, you don't seem like yourself, right? And so it happens so subtly, and it begins to deteriorate subtly, and in ways where you find yourself able to excuse it, but then it starts messing with your mentation. Like, am I going crazy? When you have to question your sanity because of a relationship, and in ways that you never had to before, precluding any other precipitating event or health event or outside circumstance, that in and of itself should be a pause for you to step back and just take inventory real quick, do the math, and show your work, because then you can utilize this kind of information to determine, like, you or me. Is you or me? But when we're in it, I tell people it's hard to see when we're in it, but I tell people, if I had already processed that event, and I was in a different space, I would have seen him coming a mile, if not 1,000 miles away. So I want to be clear about that. But there's a couple of other things I want to share as it relates to these kinds of conversations with our kids, and it's this: our children, your children, our children deserve so much more. That is why we have these conversations. Don't tell your mother is rarely, inside this context, rarely acceptable. The only example I could think of, and I'm sure there's other ones, but when we think about, don't tell your mom because it's a secret, or Christmas presents or whatever, but if you're doing something, yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that your children and our children deserve. Your child deserves to be seen and valued as a person. Your child deserves to be a child and have a childhood, not have their innocence stolen. Your child deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Your child deserves to be uplifted. Your child deserves to be nurtured. Your child deserves to be protected. Your child deserves your time, and your child deserves to be taught their value. If they don't know what they're worth, if they're not taught what they're worth, then someone can come along and flash a shiny toy, say the right things with the exact amount of sugar for that Kool-Aid, for it to be the exact taste at the right cooling temperature to quench multiple thirsts. We should not be the reason why there are deficits inside our children's childhood. Because when we do, when we're the one causing those chasms, and or when we're not the one filling those chasms, because sometimes the chasms arrive and evolve because of things outside of us, right? So we need to be cognizant and keenly aware of what's going on in the lives of our children. But when those, we shouldn't be causing them, but when they are present, we should be the ones filling them. But when we're not, when those chasms are created because of something we did or didn't do, our inattention to detail in their lives, when we're not proactive about filling those chasms in their lives, then we leave the door open. And pause there. Leaving the door open as a parent for somebody to come in and fill that gap is an invitation in and of itself. But when we leave that door open, any walk of life, with the right amount of glare, bling, whatever, and I don't just mean material bling. I mean they stand out. They're handsome. They're beautiful. They're attractive. They're this. They're that. They have this. They can do that. They can. I have access to this because of them. Can fill that chasm. The right amount of sugar, the right flavor Kool-Aid at the right temperature can fill that chasm. And so the ballast, the things that have teeth that parents can give their children, that will take root and stay, is now filled with things that are fleeting, that can lead them down a terrible road. We should not be the source of these types of childhood chasms in our kids' lives. We should not. And by letting them know, by teaching them directly what their value is, and that they are, because they're breathing in and out, they require and deserve and should command and demand that they have this type of, that they're treated with dignity and respect, and that they are people. Let me tell you, let's counter that. Let's put that in perspective and make sure that it's properly weighed. Because our children are not objects. They're not objects to be manipulated toward the gratification and service of somebody else. Your child, our children, are not replaceable. If that were the case, we wouldn't be mourning the way we mourn. We wouldn't be missing so many interactions and events and times with children that have passed. Your child, our children, are not a disposable thing that can be used and then discarded or tossed away once deemed no longer useful. That's not what our children are. They're not little robots that we wind up till they can do what we want them to do. That's not who they are. There's so much more than that. And the reason why I know it is because I used to be a child. And I'm much more than that. I was more than that then. And if my mom were alive to arrive or, to participate as a guest, she would tell you the same thing. Zinga was something. It was something. And the joke is, she used to say, you were the change for your father's quarter. I was like, what? And then as I got older, and she would tell me stories, and I understood what she meant by that, so that was kind of funny. So your at homework. Every time we have a live, we provide homework. So your at homework is for you to think about one thing you can do to aid in the protection of children. One thing. One thing I started doing a while ago was letting children know that they're seen, that I see them. So if I see them, I say hi, or I may comment on something, something that stands out. I try not to be like, it's obvious that I'm trying to say something, right? But like if they have on something I think is really cute, or if they are doing something I think is kind of funny, but not in a ridicule kind of way. Like they crack the joke, that was a pretty good joke. Like just keep it moving, right? If there's a feature that I really like or whatever, like curly hair or whatever the case may be, I like to tell parents, I like to make sure that I'm talking to the parent. Like the last time I got my nails done, there was this little girl, she was so pretty. And so like, she was just handling it. And it was like nothing but adults. And she's just sitting there and doing whatever. And so when her mom got up to take her, I said, is that your daughter? And she said, yes. I said, she's beautiful. And I looked at the daughter when I was talking to the mom. I was like, you really are beautiful. She's beautiful. I try to let them know that I see them. Because a lot of times, and not any shade on parents, we are busy. We have a lot that we're navigating. And now with all these other issues that are taking place, we're still navigating COVID-19. We're still trying to figure out how this is going to impact traditional learning. for some already, and those of us in this county in a couple weeks. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. So that's what I try to do. So you're at homework. What one thing can you do to aid in the protection of children? So let's move on. So tomorrow we will continue this week's theme, public and private news. The title for tomorrow's, you know what? Tomorrow we're gonna do the one for, because what we just presented was the Mecca Live for Monday. Tuesday's topic was masks, facades, and other plasticware. So we're just gonna move some things around. But tomorrow's Wednesday. So what we will do is do Wednesday's topic tomorrow, and that topic is, drum roll please, because I'm trying to remember how we worded it. Yo mama and other jokes from the hood. That's tomorrow's thing, because tomorrow is Wednesday and it's our pick us up Wednesday. So that's what we do during that midweek piece. So again, we will continue the topic tomorrow. The theme tomorrow. This week's theme will continue tomorrow. Public news and private news. Tomorrow's topic is Yo mama and other jokes from the hood. As always, be kind to yourself that you may be kind to others, and choose to speak life. We will post this on the Mecca Facebook page, the Mecca Facebook group page, the Instagram Mecca Live, and now on our YouTube channel. Talk to you soon.